Hello everyone. We are having Peter Louw again. This is, I think, the third interview we're having, Peter. Great to see you, great to have you.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So, thank you. And this is kind of the learn one thing. As I see it, so we're trying to learn something. And the topic that you suggested to start with today is don't hold back. That's how you put it. And as the way of introduction, I want to say that since the last year, when we met and had a similar interview, Peter released a book. I'll show it. Stuttering as a mind-body disorder. It's on Amazon. People can actually benefit. Yeah. Here it is. So, and here it's after the title, here it says how and why expressiveness and assertiveness promote fluency. So we'll cover that as well. But let's start with don't hold back. For people who stutter, who hear that, of course, the first idea probably it's easier said than done. But one of the interesting things I picked in the book instantly, for me it was something kind of new or interesting, that you mentioned that there are some defense mechanisms, and one of the defense mechanisms or reactions to stuttering, or maybe to maybe more in general to what happens in life, to emotions, to different things, but to stuttering as well. So you mentioned three defense mechanisms. One is repression of our emotions, of our feelings, repression. The second is denial, and the third one is rationalization. And repression is actually when our, again, maybe I'm putting it wrong, and you correct me the way, this is my perception as I see it after reading it. So the repression, what's interesting, what really I found interesting, is the unconscious process. So it's not something we consciously suppress, like I have anger or fear, or I feel uncertainty, and I consciously repress it. So that's not the case. It happens subconsciously, and subconsciously means that we're not quite realizing it, not quite tracing it. So my question probably, sorry. So this is my feedback that I had about the book, because I thought that, like, when we say stop holding back, it's a conscious thing, right? We can decide that right now I'm becoming more assertive, more expressive, I'm not holding back, but there is something inside me that still responds very subconsciously with deleting this command, or putting it to the trash bin, so that it's my intention oftentimes when I want to do something as a person who stutters, right? Subconsciously faces that repression mechanism. That's how I saw it. But maybe you can explain in your words, what do you mean by not holding back? Like how that it's a whole book how we cannot hold back. But maybe in a few words, how would you put that?
Yeah. Yes, that is a very good question. Let me start by talking about the term not holding back. It originates from John Harrison, and you may have heard about John. He is very well known in the American self-help stuttering world. And he, as far as I know, he was one of the very first persons who used the term "don't hold back," and that really resonated with me because it's very similar to the idea of repression. That, as you said, repression is an unconscious process. And that must be differentiated from suppression, which is a conscious process. So if we talk about repression, it means it's something we are not quite aware about. But now I must also add that the borderline between conscious suppression and unconscious repression is very vague. I mean, it's not a clear-cut kind of thing. That's not how it works in psychology. The borders within psychology are overlapping all the time. So it's not as if repression is 100% unconscious. It is in some way maybe half conscious, semi-conscious.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I see repression, and in that sense, there is a possibility that repression can be managed too. It can be controlled in a way, even though we are not quite aware of it. We can find it. There are ways of finding it, and I'm sure we all know about some of these techniques which people use to access the unconscious, meditation and relaxation. Meditation is a very well-known technique to actually identify what you are repressing, and also by experiencing, by speaking and by stuttering, you have to analyze your blocks and see why you are blocking and the circumstances in which you block more than other circumstances, and that will probably give you traces. It will probably give you suggestions on where to look and where to find the actual source of your repression. Because, I think let's start with that. I hope I have made it more clear. But repression is a theoretical concept because it's very hard. It's very hard to actually have to get evidence of it. Dr. Sigmund Freud was, I'm sure you all know about him. He was the pioneer of psychology, and especially of the unconscious. And he identified 10 basic forms of defense mechanisms, and repression for him was the major one, and it is it kind of it protects us. It's a process which we all do it. I mean, we do it every day, and it's a normal thing. For instance, if we didn't repress, our minds would have been so full of negative things, negative emotions. I mean, we would be thinking about 100 things all the time, dangers and risks, and being afraid of COVID, and worrying about tomorrow. That by means of repression, we kind of push some of those worries aside. So that we can focus on one thing, or we can focus on our daily work, on eating and things. We can't think of too many things at once. So we do repress most of them, and that's normal. That in certain circumstances it can become abnormal. For instance, if you are a young child and you are perhaps a bit sensitive, and you may be about 2 or 3 years of age, and you have fears, because I mean, it's a big new world for a 3-year-old boy. He walks among giants, among big people. I mean, your parents are huge people from the point of a young boy of 3 years old. So you walk among giants, and there are all kinds of things you don't understand, which you are uncertain about. Then your parents come and say to you, you have to be careful, because when we cross the street, there are cars, and there are things which are dangerous. So there the child becomes aware of danger, of risk. Now, for some kids, maybe this new world is a bit too much. There are too many fears. There are too much uncertainty. So for a child, it's very convenient to repress even more of his fears and anxieties. He may just push some of his fears and uncertainties back into his unconscious. And when he does that too much, then it can become a problem, because too much repression apparently is unhealthy. Dr. Freud regarded repression as the source of many psychological issues and all kinds of problems. Yeah, so that's really what my book is based on, is that stuttering seems to be one of the results of too much repression when we were young, and so we developed our defense mechanism of repression. But as I said, repression has its dark side, and there are indications that repression is responsible for many problems, and I believe that stuttering is one of them.
Yeah, and probably in terms of the origin of stuttering, there could be different, again, theories or perspectives. Some think that there is the neurological component that's beginning. you say the psychological piece might be a big thing. And my take on that is that, you know, there are two roads, but somewhere down the road they come into one, and somewhere at a deeper level, anyway, there is some, I would call it like joint common ground. We're just putting it into some categories, psychology, neurology, but we are, as you say, mind body. Like it's one and the same thing. We can't detach mind from the body, right? They exist together. So in terms of the origin, there could be different again theories, but when we have stuttering, like I definitely can relate that I personally feel there is a lot of holding back, and probably repression is also the mechanism that stays as big part of stuttering. So when you tell me, okay, Andre, now we go to the party, I can say, yes, that's great, but some part of me instantly starts pulling me back, saying, no, I'm not going to the party. And I see it, like reading your book, that's probably a repression mechanism saying, no, this is danger, and you don't want to mess up with danger. Just stay safe. And then the denial comes, oh no, I really don't want to go to the party. Maybe rationalization comes, oh, maybe the bad weather today, or like John is not going, so I'm not going too. So many things start playing in my head so that this repression is supported and I'm not going there. So I see that as a big part of stuttering, this repression mechanism, and oftentimes the big part of it we don't quite notice. I notice this no inside of me. Each time I feel something uncomfortable, challenging, confronting, where I need to speak, I feel that pulling back all the time, saying, no, somewhere deep inside, no way, I'm not doing it. And you mentioned that the first thing to start doing, maybe the first step, is basically acknowledging it. And acknowledging by one of the, again, instruments or tools is journaling. So when we start journaling, we start revealing, like taking it out. And so, can I ask you maybe a more personal question? Do you nowadays do what you preach? Do you do journaling, and how do you, like, what else will come back to assertiveness and expressiveness? Like, what do you do these days to practice that, what you say?
Yeah, as you said, yes, I do journal. I journal every day, even if it's only a paragraph. But I find that really helps me, not only in my speech, but in other things too. It seems to keep this path open, this expressive path which one has to maintain. You have to start opening up, and by journaling every day, it becomes a habit, and you keep that road open, that road from your inner unconscious to your consciousness. So I journal every day. I write about even, funny, silly things really, but I focus mainly on things that are worrying me, that I'm fearful about, that I'm angry about. Excuse me. Yes, so I focus on my emotions, and I journal. Like I said, I'm also lazy, and I've got other things to do, but I really try to make it at least, even if it's one paragraph, that also helps. Then I've got my 12 daily reminders. Those are affirmations that they are also in my book, and they are based on Dr. John Sarno's affirmations, which I find really helpful. I do those in the early morning, and they, for some reason, they work very well for me. My fluency immediately improves, and I've done this so many times now that it has sunk into my subconscious. Because if you whatever you do so many times, eventually does sink into your subconscious mind. So that helps. Then I analyze my own stuttering. If I do stutter, I immediately say to myself, what am I doing? And why am I doing this? What is going on? What factors, what influences are on me at this exact time? What words did I stutter on? Why did I stutter on that particular word? There is a reason why I stuttered on that particular word. So I do a bit of self-analysis, and interesting, the answers which I get are very interesting. They give me insight into why I did this and what must have happened in the past. And for instance, when I stutter more on with a particular person, I analyze that. I ask myself, why with this particular person? Is it because he's older than me, or if he is in a particular career, or if he is an authority figure? But why? So So I work on my speech on a daily basis really, just by speaking. And I must say, these days I'm mostly fluent for 98% of the time. I've got a few small repetitions, but they are easy to manage.
And so the journaling is one part. The other things that you mentioned is being assertive, assertiveness, and expressiveness, being expressive. And while journaling is something we do on our own, assertiveness and expressiveness, probably that's something that happens like at the moment of interaction. We can play with ourselves, of course, but at the moment of interaction, these things probably are needed. Like you mentioned, the gestures, the body language, the eye contact, like other things, being again assertive. So, is there any way to capture that at the moment of interaction? What's your take on that?
Well, yes, it's really, as you already mentioned, the expressive body language is a major thing there. And you are excellent in body language, with your expressive gestures, and one has to use the whole body because your body supports your message, and it supports your personality. We have to remember that being expressive is the exact opposite of being repressive. Repression becomes expression. And repression, expression. That is it's really quite easy. It's really, people have come to me and say, no, this is too complicated. And then I always say, this is not a rocket science. It really is not. We have to do the exact opposite with what we have been doing in the past. Where we have previously repressed, now we must express. It's really as simple as that. But it requires a new mindset. You have to switch. You have to switch your mind and get it out. You have to let it loose, let it out. Mm-hmm. Talk louder. Be more. Be more. Not only be more expressive, but be more extrovert. Because many of us are introverts, and I personally try to be as extrovert as possible, because that's the exact opposite of what I was. And I like to be different. Mm-hmm. I like to change that. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's not, for some people, that's not easy. I mean, it is not easy, but it's possible. You have to activate,
Yeah. My observation, again, I would say maybe my opinion, that expressiveness, assertiveness, the gestures, the eye contact, all these are also some things that we can, even though you say that the focus should go on the mind, not on practicing or working on some things, at the same time, practicing and working sometimes also needed just to build certain, muscle memory, emotional memory, because if I don't use gestures at all, like I again see with some of my students, if I just say use a gesture, it's not like where do I get it? I don't have it yet. So first we just need to really understand what kind of gestures we have. How can we do it at the same time as we're making an eye contact, or just making a point, focus, stress. So it might be also, and you say we can watch some actors, how they do that. We can again observe some body language. My point is that this is something we can practice. I think that there is no much contradiction with, again, our mind thing. They probably match together and go together, those things.
Yeah. I absolutely agree with that. Yes.
Yes. And you also mentioned some techniques, since we started talking about practicing, working our speech. You mentioned some techniques that we also can use, like the smooth start, slower speaking, passive airflow technique. You give the links. And the question that comes, of course, is that, because you also mentioned that at the same time we don't want our speaking to be robotic, monotonous. When we use the techniques, like in your experience, maybe observation or thought, how can we combine that with still being expressive and assertive? Can they go together, or there is again a bit of contradiction to that?
Yeah, I don't think there is a contradiction, because look, we have to remember it's mind body, it's mind body healing. In other words, there is the mind aspect, but there is also a body aspect. And the body aspect is speaking, and your nerves and tension management, tension control. That's also it's quite helpful. So for instance, I still do and use some of my techniques when I feel I need it. They are kind of like a backup for me, an extra support system when I really need it, because it's the repression inside us causes tension. It creates conflict, and that is translated into tension, and the tension hits our speaking system, apparently the vocal cords, and that tension can be managed to some extent by using speaking techniques. If it is true that this tension from our mind caused by the conflict, caused by repression, if it is true that it hits the vocal cords, causing a physical block of the vocal cords, then it will help to relax those vocal cords. And that can be done by speaking slower. If you speak slower, and especially if you slow down the first syllables, then you will reduce the tension on the vocal cords. So as far as I see it, I don't see it as a contradiction. It all depends how you see stuttering. Stuttering is not only within the mind. It is in the mind, but the mind creates stress and tension, and so you can actually also deal with that on the tension level, and then that tension strikes your vocal cords, and you can also deal with that on the vocal cord level. So you can, you can deal with stuttering on 3 levels: the mind, tension, and the vocal cords. That's how I understand stuttering and how I deal with it. Yeah.
And you mentioned that we want to emote when we speak. So we want to pass our emotions rather than repress them. But the practical question, again, for people who stutter, when I start saying something, then I feel that block or speech impediment. And at that point, as you say, we might feel the emotional tension, first of all, like panic. Oh, I'm stuttering. And it creates a lot of physical tension, and it evolves and evolves. So, when people say to themselves, we say to ourselves that it's okay to stutter, like it's okay. Does it help can it help in truly being assertive, expressive, and truly emote? What do you think? Because again, my feeling that it can help, but maybe you have different view.
Look, I think the focus should be on your emotions and on expressing it, and on not repressing. It shouldn't be on the blocks, you know. I think that is a major point which I wanted to make in the book, that our focus should go away from the physical symptoms and onto our emotions. If you focus on stuttering and on repeating and on worrying, that's the wrong way to. That's not the correct focus. That means that you're focusing on the symptom, but not on the cause. So, and I think that's a major thing, unfortunately, in the stuttering world, is that we all talk about stuttering and focusing on stuttering, and that's unhelpful. It should be exactly the opposite. Focus on our emotions. Let's focus on expressing, on being ourselves, on being authentic. And then the things, you start to change the whole process. You start to change your whole view of stuttering and speech.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's basically, yeah. Again, that's probably mm, uh, so when I try to emote, try to connect with another person, but if for some reason I still have a speech impediment and my like uh, reaction is to, I feel some negative emotions about this. Like, what's the best way to deal with those negative emotions at that moment? Because the more negative emotions I feel, probably the more stuttering they produce. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I would say you actually have to feel those emotions. If you are fearful, you have to acknowledge that fear. You mustn't fight it, because if you fight it, you're going to try to repress it, and then the conflict exists, and then you're going to get more uptight, more tense. So what I do is I try to feel my feelings. I try to feel my emotions, my fears, but I don't fight them. You mustn't fight them. You must acknowledge them. And then, for me at least, when I do acknowledge that fear and that irritation or anger or so, then my speech returns to normal. It's when I try to fight the fear, then it becomes worse.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that this mind body healing is a long-term thing. It's not something which you're going to get into immediately. You have to start changing your mind. So the first time it's you try all these things, it may not work correctly, because I mean we've been stuttering for many years, and those negative emotions, or all those tension responses and repressive responses are not going to go away overnight. So you have to gradually start to change your mind. It's a bit self-administered psychotherapy. That's really what it is. And I know that some people within the mind-body community, they actually see psychotherapists or counselors, or just to help them a bit, because to do all of this, all of to do it all by yourself is not easy. It's not easy, and it's best to get someone from within the mind-body community. There are many people who do this professionally, professional mind-body consultants, and they do ask a fee. So that may be a good idea to not try this all by yourself. It is a long-term approach. If you go to a psychotherapist, especially one who specializes in psychoanalysis, then it can take months of therapy, or even years. But I personally think that's a bit too much, and it's going to be very expensive. But the point I want to make is that this is a long-term thing.
But can I maybe clarify and ask? So, when I feel those negative emotions at the moment when I stutter, do you still, like, what's your opinion on the self-talk where I say to myself that it's okay to stutter, it's okay to be this way?
Yeah, look, it's okay to stutter. I don't disagree with that, but it's just a symptom, So once again, don't focus on the symptom. It's only a symptom. It's not the real thing. I know it looks real and it feels real, but the stutter has a purpose. It has an agenda. It is a defense mechanism, and the purpose of this defense mechanism is to distract your mind, away from your emotions, to distract your mind away from what is going on with this inner conflict. That is the whole purpose. It's really very. I know it sounds strange, but defense mechanisms are protective mechanisms. They are here to protect us, and we started to develop them when we were young to protect us against an overload of negative emotions and fears and uncertainty, or anger. It may have been anger. Many people. Okay, that's actually a whole different topic, which I maybe shouldn't talk about now. But as I see it, the purpose of stuttering is to distract us and away from things going on in your mind, in emotional things. And it's not serious things. It's because TMS, what is that's the abbreviation of the mind-body syndrome, which was identified by Dr. John Seiler. It's really not a severe thing. we think it's this whole stuttering is severe. It can be a severe speech defect, but from a mind-body perspective, it's not as severe as we think it is. It's a protective system, and once you see through this agenda which the stutter has, then things become more simple, really. Then it means that all these stutterings, which we have been doing for decades, it was all for the purpose of protecting us. But it has overstayed its welcome. It started when, or in most of us, it started when we were young. So, and we unfortunately were unable to let that go. It became a habit, but we must remember it is it's a way of distracting us. I know that this is not easy to accept for many people, and when I first heard it, I also thought it's going a bit too far. But
for me personally, I mean, I'm happy to accept it, but when it comes to how, like, the practical thing, how can I be assertive and expressive? And that's the big point. Like, journaling probably is something we, most of us, don't do much. So, and it doesn't happen like this. Now, today, I'm assertive and expressive, right? So, and I'm emoting, I'm expressing my emotions. So, as you say, it's a defense mechanism, and it tries to protect us, so we feel safe inside somewhere. We don't feel fine, we don't feel good, but we feel safe. It protects us, but we feel that we are here not to, like, be safe, but to live, right? So it feels still wrong. We want to connect, we want to express, we want to communicate. So when it comes kind of to practical thing, how can I do it a bit faster? Like, especially in the Western world, we like things like, give me the tool, give me the pill, give me the template. How can I do it faster? So, and again, probably there are ways. You mentioned, again, singing, dancing, like any ways that helps us to express, right? To be more assertive. I would even add any physical activity. Like when we do anything physical, when we get in touch with our body, we somehow magically start expressing easier, because the tension, it's like the rigidness in our body. So anytime we become more flexible, more but still, like, again, maybe this is something. Maybe again, this is a question. This is still a question to answer about some, like, steps 1, 2, 3, 10, and these are the steps to be more, like, expressive and assertive.
Yes. Yeah, I think there are some, as we already mentioned, there are some ways to make the whole process easier. For instance, as I said, I still do a bit of of fluency techniques, and I found that that fluency techniques are a bit superficial. They can make you speak fluently, so they are they can help, but they are not of a permanent basis. It's a bit of a quick fix, the fluency techniques. Same with relaxation, and that also helps if you do relaxation exercises every day, every morning. When I still worked, because I'm retired now, but when I still worked, I did a relaxation exercise each morning in the bath, for about 10 minutes, and I found that extremely helpful, because it lowered my general stress levels, and that relaxed attitude I could then maintain for the whole of the working day. So there are easier ways, and as I said, you can deal with stuttering on various levels. On the speech level, by fluency exercises, on the tension level, by relaxing and doing all the kind, by for instance, by getting enough sleep and getting quality sleep, by eating well and by working out and sports, as you mentioned. Those are all excellent ways of reducing stress. And then the more permanent thing, which I focus on these days, is the mind thing, that you have to start expressing yourself better and start changing this whole previous mindset of repressing and pulling back, and instead going outwards and taking the initiative and being active.
Wow.
But like I said, we are not all alike. I mean, some people are anyway more extroverted anyway. So it depends on the personality too. One has to take into account your own personality and your own issues, and
Got you. Absolutely. So I really I don't want to take much time. Thank you so much for sharing, Peter, and it's amazing that you have a whole book since we last met. Maybe next year you have something totally different. That would be interesting to know. It's amazing how you move forward. That's beautiful. That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
So thank you so much. Thanks everyone who's been watching or will watch. And let's stay in touch. Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you for inviting me, and all the best to all the wonderful work you are doing yourself.
Thank you.